for a single veteran. And I've even heard the VSOs putting that out lately. One of the keys, though, is that there is nothing in the law that says exactly what the limit is. It does say in the law that if you have over $80,000 of net worth, then they have to do a certain analysis when they look at your application. But as a practical matter, what I think is happening is that it is relatively easy to qualify for this benefit. So administratively, they're starting to make it tougher. And the law says, what is the reasonable amount of net worth that the veteran should have and retain for his own care? And how much of it should he spend down to pay for his care? And this is kind of a sliding scale thing. You know, a younger veteran, it would make more sense that he has to retain more of his net worth, and the government should start helping him sooner because he's got a longer period of life that he has to use his net worth to sustain himself. So it's kind of a sliding scale. And obviously, if the veteran's married, it should be more than if he's not married. But sometimes it's harder to get these applications through. We like to see as low a number as possible that you can live with, $25,000, $30,000 in that range. The difference between qualifying for the VA as opposed to Medicaid is that the VA doesn't have look-back rules. So if you have a couple $100,000 of assets, we could transfer it to the kids and apply for the benefit the next day, and you no longer have that net worth. Two things. One, generally, when you're talking to a lawyer, we don't necessarily want to transfer it to the kids because the kids could have an accident, the kids could get in trouble, different things could happen, and that money might not be available to the veteran. We would prefer to see a trust used, but it doesn't have to be a trust. You can transfer it to the kids. And but it's better to do a trust. Now this can dovetail in with the Medicaid, because if we do a trust and you're in an ALF and we get the VA benefit of $2,000 a month, between your income and the VA benefit, we might come close to covering the cost of your assisted living. And we're going to talk about some Medicaid issues soon. And if we set up that trust and you can cover your care for 5 years after that, then at the end of that time, the trust is no longer a problem for Medicaid, and we can get you on Medicaid if your care needs increase. Switching over to Medicaid now, and we'll answer questions about this later. Again, keeping in mind what I was saying earlier about the continuum of care, many times when we're doing a care plan for our clients, we want to keep the worst case scenario in mind, nursing home care. And generally we don't want to do things that will screw up the ability of the client to get nursing home care if they need it. However, what happens in that paradigm, and most of the time when you hear the word Medicaid mentioned, people are usually talking about nursing home Medicaid, ICT Medicaid, Institutional Care Program Medicaid. And what happens in that paradigm is that once you qualify for that, the patient's income goes to the nursing home and Medicaid pays the rest of the bill. In order to get nursing home Medicaid, let's talk about this. There are basically three tests, similar to the VA. There's a level of care test in the sense that, I could arrange my affairs where I could move into a nursing home and get the government to pay my bill. But if I don't need nursing home level of care, they're not going to give it to me. So you must have a need for the nursing home level of care, and the state will assess the condition of the patient to make sure they need nursing home level of care. And you need to be placed in a nursing home to get that as well. The income test, and again in the green sheet there's a Medicaid fact sheet in them, and we're going to require a bribe to get the green folders, and I'll tell you about that later. But there's a Medicaid fact sheet in there, and that's not really true. We're going to give anybody who wants one a green folder. But Florida is an income cap state, and the patient can't be eligible for Medicaid if their income is over the income cap, which is $2,022 per month. However, this is not a significant problem because there is a device that we can use called a qualified income trust where we can get the patient qualified by using the qualified income trust. Now, unfortunately, the qualified income trust really doesn't do the client a whole lot of good other than getting them qualified. It doesn't really save any money. In fact, it costs money because even when you're dealing with a lawyer who doesn't charge by the page, it's another trust and we need to charge for it because we have responsibilities that go with it and so on and so forth. But the point is, we can satisfy the income test pretty easily. Assets is where it starts getting tougher. The patient cannot have more than $2,000 of countable assets. So let's think about countable for a minute. Obviously, financial accounts and almost anything that you can reduce to cash are going to be countable or available resources. But your home specifically is not a countable asset. And at least one automobile, there are circumstances where we might be able to get more than one automobile as an exempt asset. We got another slide where we're going to talk about assets a little bit more. But a prepaid funeral contract is not a countable resource, an irrevocable prepaid funeral contract. And that makes a lot of sense to pay that. If we've got more money that we can't get qualified, that's one thing we probably ought to look at, because if we spend all the money on a nursing home, somebody's going to have to pay for the funeral eventually anyway. And if we have to spend down, that is a good thing to spend down on. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of our clients have gone to Hazley and they have been uniformly pleased. Also, you are allowed to have a funeral account of $2,500. And we have some little instruction sheets to help clients set that up. And basically, it's kind of an affidavit that it's earmarked for the funeral, but nobody's going to check as to what you spend it on. And we want to make sure that that is a POD account, pay on death, or an ITF account, to make sure it doesn't come back into the estate, because the estate might need to pay back to Medicaid. And we also don't want to create a probate if we don't have to. Okay, while we're on this slide, again, I'm having to skip around a little bit.